Welcome everyone to our Trey Athlete Season 3 Job Shadow covering the industry of education and training. I'm Brian Reynolds, co-founder and co-CEO of Trey Athletes. This is a Trey Season 3 virtual job shadow with Dr. Addy Tolliver, starting with a moderated conversation and followed by an audience Q&A. Attendees can submit questions at any time to be considered through the Q&A function, and there will be an opportunity to appear on video to ask your question live. Also, don't forget your team can win a pizza party by engaging with Trey on social media and tagging us at Trey Athletes. Be sure to check out the social media rules on our Instagram page. This job shadow is presented by Trey Athletes. We are a Dallas-based youth sports nonprofit, and our mission is to empower athletes to be leaders, role models, and influential voices for their communities. We believe that by providing high school athletes with the opportunity to learn from amazing speakers like Dr. Addy Tolliver, who will provide insight and tips for success, you will gain the skills to succeed both on and off the court or field. After this job shadow, you will reflect on your learnings by completing a debrief session feedback survey. And tonight, we have a very special guest, one of my good friends and one of our Trey Athletes mentors from seasons 1 and 2. You know how they say friends are the family that we get to choose? Well, I'm lucky to call Dr. Addy Tolliver a good friend of mine. So to begin, let's start with Addy's bio. Dr. Addy Tolliver is a senior instructional designer at SMU's Center for Teaching Excellence. She has served as an adjunct professor in SMU's Education Policy and Leadership Department, as well as the Embry Human Rights Department. In her current role, Addy is responsible for helping SMU's faculty successfully integrate technology into the classroom while also promoting student engagement in face-to-face and online courses. Prior to joining SMU, Addy worked at Texas Wesleyan University's Center for Excellence in Teaching and Learning as an instructional technologist and as an adjunct professor. Before that, she was a graduate assistant for the Baylor University Online Teaching and Learning Services, a graduate fellow at the Baylor Academy for Teaching and Learning, and the instructor for a number of college and master's classes at Baylor. Addy has served as the president of the Baylor Graduate Student Association, as well as the president of the Baylor Brazilian Student Association. All three of her degrees are from Baylor, where she was a 4-year volleyball letter winner and was named first team academic All Big 12. In the classroom, she earned a bachelor's in graphic design, a master's of education focused on sport pedagogy and coaching, and a doctorate of education in curriculum and instruction. Woo! Prior to playing volleyball at Baylor, Addy was born and raised in Sao Paulo, Brazil, where she grew up playing volleyball professionally. In addition to all the above, Addy loves art and graphic design, going to concerts and music festivals, playing video games, relaxing with her adorable pets, and above all else, she loves her husband and my good friend, Mark Tolliver. We are incredibly grateful and thankful to welcome tonight's Trey Season 3 Job Shadow speaker, Dr. Addy Tolliver.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure is all ours, my friend. To kick things off, let's go way back to Sao Paulo, Brazil. Tell us about where you're from and what it was like for you growing up in Brazil.
Sure. So I grew up in Sao Paulo. So in Brazil, there's Sao Paulo State and Sao Paulo City. I was born in Sao Paulo City, in the southern part of the city, and it's the biggest city in South America. So it's one of the biggest cities in the world. I think it's like the second or third most populated city in the world. So it's crazy. And I grew up in lower middle class family, and my mother is a teacher, and my dad had a degree in economy, and it was a fun childhood with a lot of sports. I started young dancing. I started at 5 years old, and I actually danced competitively. And it got to a point where I noticed that all of my friends were dancing with boys, and I was way too tall to be dancing with boys because I was on point and I was 6 foot tall, and there were no 6'5" ballerinos to dance with me. So I figured that I needed to kind of find something that matched my physique a little bit better. And somebody suggested, hey, you should try volleyball. And I started playing volleyball, and that became my life.
That's amazing, Addy. Our co-founder, Rebecca, has similar stories about dancing as a 6'2" young woman starting off in middle school and high school. So right there with you on that one. Quick follow up there. When you were a kid, and then again when you were in high school, what did you want to be when you grew up?
So I think that because my life was all about volleyball, I only thought about being a volleyball player. I always knew that I wanted to play volleyball and I wanted to compete. And I started doing decently well, that I was playing in competitive teams and club teams that there was a glimpse that I could have an opportunity to play and make a life out of it. So that's what I had in mind, that I was going to be playing volleyball at that time.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
And then obviously you played professionally while you were in Brazil. And let's fast forward just a little bit because I want to start digging in here as it relates to your time in Waco, Texas. So talk to
Mhm.
us about how did you choose Baylor for college?
So one day I played in a really good club team in Brazil, and one day just a bunch of coaches showed up, and they were in a they went to visit the club team on a recruiting trip, and I spoke to a lot of those coaches, and the Baylor coach was the one that kind of I liked the most, and they had like a better recruiting pitch, I would say. Plus, I thought that the bear was really cute. It sounds really weird, but they showed me a picture because Baylor University, they do have bears on campus, and they told me about the bears on the pictures, and that kind of won my heart. But they talked about the program, they talked about the opportunities within the team. One of the things that really made me think about Baylor was the weather. Also, I did not want to go to the United States and be in a really cold, like snowy place. I'm from Brazil, which is a very tropical country. To me, that was important. That I didn't want to be super cold. I didn't want to be in a place with a ton of natural disasters, which then I found out that Waco, Texas could have tornadoes. But and then the other thing is that I wanted to, and this was 2003. So this was pretty recently after 9/11. So I was very concerned about, being a big hub and safety. It's like, is this a place where there could be terrorist attacks? And after talking to the coach, he assured me that Waco, Texas wouldn't be a place that, I'll have a terrorist attack. But that was something that I had to consider back in 2003. So those are the three main pillars, a good opportunity for volleyball, good weather, of course, a safe place, and the bear won my heart.
And I'm going to use that as an opportunity. So 3 pillars there, as well as 3 degrees.
Trey pillars.
Trey degrees, right? It's just incredible. Talk to us about how you found your passions, including art and education.
So I was one of the only girls in my team, in my club team back home in Brazil, that was already going to college. So I was trying to balance out going to college, and I had gotten a scholarship to university to study psychology. And the way the universities work in Brazil, it's a little bit different than the United States. Over there, you kind of have to declare first your major, what you're going to be studying, and you study that for 4 or 5 years. So I was already kind of going to psychology school back home because I got a scholarship to play volleyball for the university. And then I came to the United States and I got some psychology credits, but I found out that if I wanted to be a psychologist in the United States, I would have to have a doctorate degree. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to get a doctorate. I need to change my major. Who would have known, right? So I decided, so I was just, taking a bunch of different classes, and I've always been interested in art, but, growing up, my focus has always been volleyball. I never developed that side of my interests. And I took a couple of like drawing classes and just fell in love with it. And I started learning about graphic design, and that was something that just completely sparked my passion. So that's what I decided to pursue for my undergrad.
That's awesome. And I think this is a great opportunity to mention that Addy has decorated their entire new home with nothing but her art. So it's basically the Addy Museum when you
Yes.
walk in over there, and it's incredible.
Yes, I like it. So that's good.
Okay, so you had this exposure to psychology. You were really passionate and interested in art. Talk to us maybe a little bit about what it was like moving to a new country, making totally new friends, and balancing school and sport, which, at Trey, we know that you're going to spend roughly 40 hours a week on your sport and, another 30 to 40 hours a week focused on your studies and academics. And in the meantime, you're still trying to make time to be a normal college student. So what was that like for you?
It was actually a challenge at the very, very beginning. And we need to think that this was 2003. So technology wasn't as developed as it is today, right? Like right now, you can go anywhere in the country and you can have your mobile device and you can have internet and you can, FaceTime with people or WhatsApp it or whatever. And back in the day, it wasn't as easy to have those technologies. So as I moved to the United States, I remember that I didn't even have a cell phone. When I had to make a call, I had a calling card because the telephone did not allow me to make international phone calls. So I had to use a calling card to get the credits to make a call to my parents in Brazil. And it took me a few months to even get a computer to be able to get internet. And back in the day, even video chat was not as good as it is today. So I would only communicate with my mom via email, which was very challenging. So not kind of cutting ties with family and friends was extremely challenging. But being an English as a second language speaker, this helped a lot because I really had to practice, right? So as a foreigner, when you don't, are trying to apply to a new university, you have to pass certain tests, like a TOEFL proficiency test that shows that your English is good enough that you can take classes, right? And I passed that test, but my English wasn't as good as it is today. In fact, some of my really good friends that used to play volleyball with me back in the day make fun of how I used to speak. I say, so this and this and that. Like, it was really fun. But I am not a shy person in Portuguese, neither am I in English. So if I want to say something, I will make myself understood in some way. I'm not mind my way through it. And I'm going to be paying attention and learning. So my volleyball teammates were wonderful because we were together all the time in practice, and they really helped me out and make sure that I felt like I was part of a community and had friends. And so I was always doing stuff with them. So they made life a little more normal, but it was challenging at the very beginning. And also having to balance in school and volleyball was really tough because at Baylor, we had to maintain a certain grade. So I was always doing study hall hours, but also a good way to kind of remain social, right? Because when you're doing study hall with other athletes, you end up meeting people that play other sports. So, it's fun to see them, but also there's utility because you're trying to improve your grades and study more. So.
You're just a Jill of all trades. You do a little bit of everything,
Yeah.
right? And I think one of the things I love most about you is how it seems as if you've never met a stranger. So it's just so much fun, interacting with you socially and seeing you meet new people. And I think that people just light up when they get a chance to meet you. So it's not surprising to hear that transition was, difficult at times based on technology, but at the same time, like you just dove right in from a social perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so talk to us about, you get a bachelor's in fine arts, and then you decide to go on to get a master's degree then thereafter, after you finished your volleyball career. Talk to us about that transition specifically.
So actually, I started my master's. I had not finished my volleyball career yet. So this is one of those opportunities that, with volleyball. So I had 2 knee surgeries. I tore my ACL at my first semester at Baylor. And then my third semester, I had to do a knee reconstruction. So that was kind of a bummer, but at the same time, that extended my eligibility years, right? Because I was able to redshirt. And in fact, I was granted a 6th year of eligibility after petitioning the NCAA because when I came in, I transferred some credits from Brazil. So it was already kind of like a sophomore, junior-ish. And then I got the red shirt and then I got hurt again. So we I had to write a letter to NCAA and really kind of explain my situation. I mean, I moved outside of the country and I was working really hard also to recover from my knee surgeries. Like I really wanted to play and be part of the team, and I did, right? But that also allowed me to have an extra year of eligibility. And allowed me to start my master's degree. So with the graphic design degree, I've always known that I could be a graphic designer and do graphic design job. But the opportunity for the master's came in, and I was like, man, I'm really passionate about volleyball. So once again, I had the thought, I'm going to be a professional volleyball player. It's like, no, maybe I should pursue this as a volleyball coach, you know? And I started that master's degree thinking I want to be a volleyball coach. But it was interesting because I learned so much in my master's. And one of the opportunities that I had throughout my master's is that I actually did have the chance to teach a college level volleyball class, which merged the coaching aspect of teaching volleyball, but also there was some theory, and I had to make it a little more academic. And that experience really was so much fun to me. I loved being kind of like a classroom teacher in a way, but like mixing both. And I was like, maybe I should explore this. And plus, I found out also, I was thinking about the career as a volleyball coach, you know, like, man, like if I'm going to be a volleyball coach at a university, if something happens, I mean, it's such a job that is so volatile, right? Like if you have a few bad seasons, they may fire you, and then you have to find another job. That means that you're going to have to move out of state, and you have to, like, you know, you're always traveling on the weekends. You're always traveling with your team. It's wonderful, but you're off season, you're recruiting. And it's like, is this the life that I want to have? Is this the lifestyle that I want for the rest of my life? And it's something that sometimes we don't consider, right? We don't think about what the job entails and the kind of life you're going to have. And I was like, man, I can always coach on the side. So it's not like this degree is going to go to waste. In fact, after I was done, for many, many years, I coached club volleyball locally. And that's one of the things I've been super passionate about. I can always do my graphic design on the side. In fact, I get, you know, my side hustles. Like people just get the graphic design jobs for me to do. And I do my paintings for, you know, friends. In fact, I have a lot of collectors out of my California group of friends that collect a bunch of my paintings. And I can do that on the side. And I can do my, you know, my coaching if I want to. Just go coach club. But I was like, maybe I should do something else. And when I, you know, started teaching, I was like, maybe this is something that I'm really passionate about. And the other thing that happened during my master's degree is that one of the opportunities that I had, I always liked kind of doing some side hustles, right? I started a graduate, an assistantship on campus. So I actually got a job on campus with student work, which was the only thing that I was allowed to do to get more money as an international student. I got this position on campus, and I was a graduate assistant at this digital media studio under the Baylor Online services. And I started helping faculty with instructional technology, graphic design, and I really saw a need there to assist faculty with those things. And that's kind of like what opened the doors for my doctorate degree, is that I was passionate about classroom teaching. I noticed there was a need for assisting professors get better with their technology skills and kind of helping them. And then there was an opportunity for me to actually apply for the program, which I was accepted. And because of my assistantship, they had already a graduate assistantship position that the girl was leaving. So at a university, sometimes if you're a graduate student and you work at a place on campus, they pay for your tuition and they give you a stipend. And that the girl that worked as my supervisor was graduating. So I knew that they were going to have a spot there, and I talked to them, and basically I got into the doctoral program, and they paid for my tuition and gave me a stipend. So it worked out pretty well.
Not too shabby, my friend. And I think what's really incredible is seeing how all of these pieces came together, right? Like it's almost, it's definitely not by happenstance. It's almost fate in some ways, right? Like you talked about how technology was such a barrier for you when you first came to the United States, and how you found your passion for education through volleyball, which brought you here in the first place. And then you bring those worlds together to now create this new area of study for your doctoral focus. So it's just, it's phenomenal to see how, you know, fate might deal us a certain hand that we might not have otherwise seen, but you really made the most of your opportunities, which I think is just phenomenal. So let's dig in a little bit more here now as it relates to your Trey degree. So you head out, you begin your career. Can you talk us through kind of your professional life from maybe your first job after graduation to where you are now and how you're putting those 3 degrees to work?
Absolutely. So as I was working on my, doctoral degree, I was working the Baylor Online Teaching Learning Services, and I was also a graduate fellow at Baylor's Academy for Teaching and Learning. And the combination of both those positions is something very similar to what I do now at SMU. But I was at Baylor and I was kind of like struggling to kind of finish my dissertation. I was done with coursework, and my now husband moved to Dallas. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I just need a change of pace. Maybe I need to kind of leave Waco and be somewhere else just to get that final push for me to finish my dissertation. And I actually got this job at Texas Wesleyan University in Fort Worth, Texas, at their Center for Access in Teaching and Learning as an instructional technologist. So instructional technologist position is a little bit different than an instructional designer position, but it's somewhat similar when you work in a center for teaching, which is basically helping faculty with certain services. As an instructional technologist, is more helping the integration of technology to promote better teaching and learning. As an instructional designer is also that, but also helping with course design. My job there, I worked there for about 3 years, and I loved the job. I loved working with the faculty. It's just that I was living in Dallas and commuting to Fort Worth every day, which it's a pretty long commute. And also at that time, I was coaching club volleyball in Plano. So if you are from Dallas, Texas, if you imagine, going from uptown Dallas, kind of near downtown, and going all the way to Fort Worth, and then twice a week going from Fort Worth to Plano to then go down to, it's a lot of driving. So that kind of took a toll. And by the way, that same year I was finishing my dissertation and I was planning a wedding. So I was like, I need to find something different. So it was great. It was a great learning experience, but I also, as you work on a job, you also learned about the lifestyle they would have, right? As I talked about when I was trying to get a job in the coaching. It's like, is this the lifestyle I have? Do I want to commute this much to go to work? And I was like, no, I don't. So I had to look for other opportunities. And one of the things that I did, I contacted the director for the Center for Teaching at SMU, knowing that there were no positions open at the time. And basically I emailed him saying, hey, this is who I am. This is what I do. Let me know if there's ever a position opening at SMU. I live really close. I'm tired of my commute, and he responded to that email and we met and opportunities opened up and I got the position at SMU and I've been there for over 5 years now.
Okay, so I think this is really important to call out because you mentioned it earlier on and now you've mentioned it again, which is a lot of people don't consider sort of the lifestyle effects or the impacts as it relates to some of their career or job decisions, right? And so you were just so thoughtful and so intentional every step of the way when it came to whether it was, choosing the work that you do or how and when and where you do that work. So I think that's a really important lesson to call out. So I just wanted to kind of crystallize that. But I think that the other thing that you just said that really jumps out at me is how you took the initiative to figure out, here's exactly where I want to be. Here's the employer that I want. Here's the role in the specific sort of opportunity that isn't currently available, but is something that I'm super interested in. And you you took it upon yourself to reach out and almost create that reality. So I think that that's another really incredible tidbit for anyone watching or listening at home, that opportunities don't have to just fall into your lap. Oftentimes we have to seek those out ourselves. So
absolutely. And I'll give credit to my mother on this because I remember that she came to Dallas to visit me and I was just touring Dallas with her in the car. And I was like, Mom, let me show you this place. Let me show you SMU. That's this university that's really close by. And SMU has such a beautiful campus. And I was like, look, I would love to work here. And she was like, then do it. Like, then contact the people, then see what you're doing. Like, if they have an HR department, like what they have said, it's like, but they don't have any positions open. I'm always looking. Like, I've been looking for positions in the Dallas area and there's nothing open. It's like, then email them and just, throw your name in the hat. And she kind of gave me that advice or piece of wisdom. And that's another piece of wisdom that I would love to pass to the Trey athletes. If the position is not there, send your information, at least try to network. And if, because the position wasn't there. In fact, the position did not open for a few months after. And I even got another offer for another place that, they offer me a better salary than SMU was offering me. And at that time, like, I was waiting on my documents for my green card to get approved. So there was like some issues with visa and all that stuff. And I almost thought that I wasn't going to get the SMU job because, the other position was so good, money wise, because it was private sector. But you see how things happen. For me to actually get the job in the private sector, I was waiting for my documents for the visa to come through. And they were going to have to give me a work visa and all that kind of stuff. And we had to wait. And this time that we had to wait, the position at SMU actually opened up. Like, because once you grow up, that HR departments take a long time for positions to open up and the bureaucracy and all that stuff. But that's the time that I had to wait for the other position. That's all the time it took for the position SMU to open. And I just had to take it because I always knew that that's the place that I wanted to be at. And it's been great. It's been a great job. I love my job.
Well, the loss of the private sector is the gain of SMU as the senior instructional designer. So let's dig in a little bit now as it relates to your role. So as I understand it, you help college professors basically bring technology into their curriculum. First, maybe tell us about a typical day in your day-to-day career right now.
Sure. So there's not a typical day, and that's what I love about my job. So it just depends on the time of the year. So my busiest times of the year are the weeks before classes start. So let's say, January, the first couple of weeks before classes start, same thing in the fall. We think that all of our professors have their stuff together. A lot of them tend to procrastinate and leave things at the last minute. So when it comes to putting their courses and their learning management system or just help designing or coming up with activities and things like that, sometimes like a last minute thing. But typical day, I get up and I look at my emails and see if anybody is requesting a consultation. So I work basically on a consultation basis, and so my day really varies from day to day depending on, if people need my help or not. They can always go in and schedule appointments with me. There's a booking system that is synced with my schedule. And they can also put themselves in my calendar, but oftentimes they just email me. And if I can answer something, I can reply via email. And even before the pandemic, I was doing a lot of Zoom consultations too. So we just meet in Zoom, and Zoom allows people to share screens, and I can also remote control people's computers for them. So I can kind of teach them how to do something in the computer really easily in Zoom. So that's pretty much it. Like, basically me having meetings with folks and helping them with questions.
Okay, so it's like you're reading my mind over here. Let's talk a little bit about how different this last year has been and the importance of your role, as well as all the amazing work that you do in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic. Because whether it was you, whether it was professors, whether it was students, or I'm sure parents and administrators and everyone else involved, I can't imagine what that was like. Fill us in on kind of the last year.
Okay, so remember the start of the pandemic where you heard all classes are going to go online. The universities are deciding we're going online. Guess who they called? People like me, okay? That's exactly what I do. So for many years since I got the job at SMU, or even Texas Wesleyan University, my job has been to train faculty how to be better teachers, whether it is in a face-to-face class or to teach online, and help them design their courses. So they work with me as kind of the subject matter expert. So if I work with a professor in biology, they're experts in biology. They know a lot about biology. I don't know a lot about biology, but I know a lot about teaching and learning. I know how the brain works. I know different teaching methods and strategies so that the students are more engaged and they, are doing the work and using their time more efficiently to learn, and the types of activities that we know they're better to promote better learning and long-term retention of the information, right? So I work basically in partnership with the professors to kind of design and develop these courses too. So, and that was one of the busiest times of my career. Last summer was one of the busiest times because then we had to train all the faculty at SMU that had to go teach online in the fall, and the ones that were going to be teaching this flat format that some students are going to be in class and some were going to be online. And we know there's a lot of research on what good online courses do, or things that you should see in an online course. It's not something new, right? But particularly in my role, I had already developed courses for faculty on how to teach online. So I just had to tweak this, but make sure that it was in a format that I could scale and we could train as many people as possible with the least amount of full-time employees as we could. Because there's, in my position specifically, I was the only one. And then I used somebody that was from the IT department, that she had academic instructional design experience. So it was just 2 people doing this work. So we had to come up with an online course that was, faculty could work independently, but then submit some work that would provide the feedback and could help them with teaching strategies about teaching online, but also help them with course design, because those are 2 separate things. Designing an online course is completely different than just teaching the online course. That's one thing that people don't understand. And teaching just in Zoom is not really online teaching. There's a lot more to online teaching if you know online teaching. So that was challenging, but actually it was a very challenging experience, but I think it really showed the value that somebody in my position brings to an institution. I was working way over time, but at the same time, when things were done, I think people appreciated our efforts and my office's efforts, and we collaborated with other offices on campus. So that was appreciated. I mean, the OIT department and the academic technology services team from our university kind of helped us out. So that was really a team effort between different offices at the university. And I mean, that was kind of a fun thing to be a part of, and know that these professors are better prepared to teach the students in the fall. That brought us a lot of happiness, because ultimately we want the SMU students to have the best academic experience that they can have when they come to the university.
Oh, I know. And I think that, so again, there's a couple things that you said there that just really jump out at me. Number one, this idea of collaboration across multiple groups at the university, right? And it's almost kind of bringing it full circle back around to the Trey athlete side. It's super similar to working on a team, but in this case, much bigger, right?
Absolutely. And I think that the experience that I had as an athlete, definitely those are the things that helped me be a better team player, as I was working on this project. Not that I wasn't frustrated at times, but you guys, Trey athletes, know that when you're in a team, you're working with different people with different personalities. It can be very frustrating. But if you want to win and if you want to, make it work, you need to make it work, and you need to get over it, and you need to work together. And that's exactly what happened. And so those skills definitely transfer to what I do currently.
I love that. And then I think the second thing that really jumped out at me is, if I have a vote for MVP of 2020 to 2021 at SMU, it's got to go to Dr. Addy Tolliver, right?
I did win a couple of awards, which was kind of awesome.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
You didn't tell me anything about that yet. Let's dig a little
Oh,
deeper.
no, yeah, I got like an extraordinary staff awards, which was basically in response to the pandemic, our pandemic response. I was one of the few people. So there were, my boss got that, I did it, that lady that helped me out, and her boss. We got these extraordinary staff and extraordinary faculty awards. And then there was another outstanding staff awards that the faculty senate also awarded to me, which was kind of awesome. So yeah, pretty cool.
He's a big deal. That's what I'm picking up. Okay, so we're gonna take these next few questions in a little bit different direction. I want us to do a speed round. So I'll ask a question, you briefly answer it with a short response, and we're gonna see if we can just jam through, call it 6 or 7 questions real quick. So tell us, what is your favorite thing about your job?
Helping professors.
Helping professors. I love it. She's a helper. What is your least favorite thing about your job?
The least favorite thing about my job. So this is I've been thinking about the least favorite thing about my job. Like maybe is that I'm never going to be rich. It's one of those things that's a good, stable job, has great benefits, but it's not like, if I was in our hedge fund or something, or working on Wall Street. I work for academia, and people that work in academia, I'm never going to be driving a Lamborghini. I'm going to be driving a really good car, not a Lamborghini. Not that I want to drive one.
All right, so least favorite thing about your job, no Lamborghini. I hear you there.
No Lamborghini, yes.
What are you most proud of at work?
Definitely how we responded to the COVID pandemic. And I'm pretty proud of that and training the faculty to teach online.
I would ask you, what's the biggest challenge you faced at work, but it sounds like the answer to that is also COVID.
It was COVID, not the training faculty part of COVID, but with training. Can I elaborate on this one? We're still doing quick answers.
Please.
So one of the things that faculty don't usually get told what to do by the university, right? So there's some academic freedom that goes into their positions. But in response to COVID, there was some top-down enforcement. Like, if you teach online, you have to go through this training. And it's not necessarily because the university wanted to, is that, our accreditors, the people that accredit universities to become universities, they require training for people that teach online. So we had to do something to train them. And so some faculty just did not like being posed training and being mandated to do things. So training faculty is fine, but training faculty when they don't want to be trained, some people were more challenging than usual, right? So because I'm more of a partner to faculty, not like I'm telling you what to do type of position. So that was the biggest challenge that I faced at work, that I was seen as the person that was telling them what to do. But I was just really telling them, hey, we have 20 to 30 years of research in online education. This is what the research best practices are. Try to do some of the stuff in your courses.
So biggest challenge is you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him or her drink.
100%. Yeah, way to make it concise.
I like it. 2 more speed round questions. What skills are most important in your job?
Have patience to meet people where they are. A lot of faculty have different levels of technology fluency. So I cannot assume that somebody will know how to use, a certain type of technology or do certain things. So I need to be patient and have good conversations and good dialogue and meet people where they are.
I love that. Okay, so we'll take a quick breath. I have 2 more questions for Addy. So just to give a heads up to our audience, please make sure that you submit your questions in the Q&A or the chat. And I guess aside from volunteering with us at Trey Athletes, obviously, while living with your wonderful husband and pets, also obviously, where do you see yourself professionally in the next 5 or 10 years?
So this is interesting. I would love to continue at SMU. That's my plan. I love the institution. I love the team that I work with. I admire them. I respect them. Because our center is so small, we have 3 people in our center. It's really challenging, right? The idea of advancement. So, ideally, I would like to maybe get a position. It's still in the center doing what I do, but maybe as an assistant director, and then maybe in a few years from now, 10 years, potentially be a director position. The only thing is that currently a director position at my center is a part-time position, and it's a full faculty member, right? So right now, even though I also teach on campus, my full-time position is a staff position. So it would require me potentially becoming full-time faculty to then be able to be a director of the center. But maybe an assistant director in 5 or 10.
I love it. Look out, SMU. She's going to be rising up that ladder and that totem pole before you know it.
I hope so.
That amazing virtual background helps. So last question here. Let's come full circle all the way back around to Addy as a young person. Imagine yourself in the shoes of our Trey athletes who are in high school. What advice, what career advice would you give yourself as a young person, knowing what you know now?
I would say look at all of the passions that you have. You might be an athlete now and you are very passionate about your sport. It's understandable. You should be. You're an athlete and you should be giving 100% to that. But also don't ignore the other things that you like and try to nurture those other passions that you have at the same time that you nurture your sport, because you don't know, what opportunities you have. The other thing that I would say is look at what the lifestyle of that career will entail, right? For instance, I always wanted to be a volleyball player. I never thought of like, what is the day-to-day of being a professional volleyball player for the next 10, 20, 30 years, right? Like, is this the life that I want to have? And all same thing as the coach, right? It took me starting a master's degree in coaching. It's like, okay, maybe that's not the lifestyle that I want. And you have an opportunity to start thinking about this stuff a lot earlier. So every time that you have an opportunity like a job shadow like this, take it. Listen about the different careers that people have and the different lifestyles that they have. See something that you see yourself in those positions. Research how much each of those positions would pay, the training that would require for you to get those positions, how much investment in your life that you're going to have to put on. Do you need a doctorate degree? Do you need a master's degree? Because that's time investment in your life that you're going to have to put to get to that position. And don't expect things just to fall on your hand. Also go and reach out for the things that you want if you're really passionate about them. People are not going to, they're only going to be impressed if you're trying to reach out. Don't be pushy, but say, hey, this is, I would love an opportunity to meet you and show you what I'm all about and the skills that I have. And if there's ever an opportunity for us to work together, I would love to be considered. I think anybody would appreciate that.
Excellent, as usual. So now we're going to open up for some questions from our audience. So as you might imagine, a number of these are going to be kind of sports related. So we're going to start off by asking what skill sets, what transferable skills would you say you've recognized, and we talked about one already as it relates to teamwork, that you've transitioned from sport into your career?
Yes, I think that definitely teamwork and communication with other team members. Understanding that people that you will work with might not be the people that you want to have coffee or drinks at the end of the day, but it doesn't mean that you cannot do your job well with them. There's different roles that people play in your life, and not saying that I'm not going to want to grab coffee or drinks with my coworkers currently, but you might, you might actually meet people that you just have to learn to work with. And you'll see that sometimes the people that are picked to be your teammates and make a team, like in college, the people that are recruited, you didn't have a say on who those people are, but you have to make it work because you are on the same team. And you have to communicate with them, and you need to try to do the best that you can to have a positive relationship so that you can achieve your goals together. Because ultimately, whether you're in a sports team together or in a professional team together, you will have similar goals. And once all of you succeed, that's only when all of you succeed that you succeed too.
Excellent advice. And this next question is actually also sports related. So our Trey athlete is asking, some athletes struggle to transition basically to the workplace because they're used to continual direct feedback from their coach or watching film or what have you. And it can be harder to get honest feedback at work. Have you experienced this, and how did you adjust from this like very rigid sort of schedule and approach as a collegiate volleyball player, where you got constant feedback, tape, etc., to now being in the workplace? How did you sort of adapt?
This is very interesting because yes, you are always accustomed to feedback, and you don't get that anymore. The good thing is that you can establish conversations with your supervisors about having some kind of meetings, regular meetings where you can get feedback back about your performance. So in our office, we at least have annual meetings where we can establish goals for the upcoming year. And so we can kind of benchmark the things that we want to do. And every year we can see, did we meet these goals or not? We can start with that. Maybe see, you can get in a schedule with your supervisor and then establish some goals, and you can focus on meeting those goals, from the time you establish them to the next time that you're going to meet with your supervisor. The other thing is, like, with my specific supervisor, we do have some goal management software that we can just say, like, these are the things that we're working on right now, and it can provide me with feedback without us kind of meeting in person, just weekly feedback that I give them what I've been working on and what I want to work on in the upcoming week. So that's one way that you can hold yourself accountable for the things that you want to do.
I think that that's incredible advice, because I think that it's then sort of on the individual to carry over that structure, right? To operate in an environment that works best for them. So for you, goal setting really works well. And that's actually another one of the questions that we have here. So the question, I'm going to kind of reframe it just a little bit, is effectively like, how would you start setting career goals as a high schooler, right? Because you mentioned yourself, when you were in high school, you wanted to be a professional volleyball player, and then you thought about psychology, right? What obviously transition and how things played out were very different than that. So how do you think about goal setting from a high schooler's perspective?
I think that if you're doing goal setting, you're already ahead because I didn't do any goal setting in high school. And that's one of the things that I wish I had done. Now, knowing about goal setting and what it is, I think that I would have been way farther in my career. But I think that even if you don't do that stuff, things will turn out good if you're just, try to. I try to apply myself in all my degrees. I mean, I wouldn't have gotten to a good master's program if I didn't have good grades for my undergrad. I know if I have gotten a doctoral program if I didn't do well prior to that on my undergrad and master. So if you're giving 100% every step of the way, I think that you see that you have opportunities, even though you haven't done any goal setting. But if you are doing it in high school, I think you're well ahead than what I was. I think that you should think about what is the type of lifestyle that you want to have. You start doing your research about what are the positions and try to see if there's anything that relates to your passions and the positions that you see, and try to do these job shadows or learn about what it would take, degree wise, and look at the institutions that provide the best degree in that area that you have, because then if you go to those institutions and you can play a sport there and you're taking advantage of their resources, you might be able to, get great networking and get a great job in the area that you're passionate about. So that's what I think that you should be doing. Just research, psychos, give 100%, and learn about the positions that you might want to have in the future. And set your goals on learning about those positions. It doesn't have to be like, on 5 years, I want to be here. On 5 years, like, no, it's like, okay, in 6 months, I want to know about what it entails to be a graphic designer, or what it entails to be a painter, what it entails to be a teacher, and then, like, I'm going to be learning how much a graphic designer gets paid, or how much is a work week as a graphic designer. Do I have to work on weekends? Do I have to work after 5 p.m.? Like, do I have to work, or is it a 9 to 5, or is it freelance work? Will I get benefits as a graphic designer? Like, So those are things that I never thought about. But if you get like, I have 6 months to research this profession, that's already a doable goal setting for you, and think about what you're going to do in the future.
That is such good advice, because I think not only is it that much easier to set short-term goals and say, I want to learn about and I want to be exposed to, this particular industry, but understanding that life is going to change, and we have to adapt at all the time. So the goal should be to have goals that you're setting, as opposed
Correct.
to worrying about, what the far off distant future looks like.
Absolutely. And I'm sure that, I was talking about the example of the graphic designer. If you find out a place that has graphic designers and you send them an email saying, hey, I am a high school student and I really took some graphic design classes in high school and I'm really passionate about this. Do you mind meeting with me in Zoom or in person whenever the pandemic is over? Or can I have a quick Zoom call that you can share what your job is about, or your career is about? I'm sure that they're going to say yes. Or if they can't, like, well, could you lead me to somebody that can meet with me, if you're not available? And you learn about that from the people that are doing that stuff in their profession. And then you have a better idea of what the future might be,
Totally true. Okay, so for our last two questions, we have one fun one for you. One of our Trey athletes wants to know, it sounds like you are very motivated and you work very hard during the week. How do you recharge? How do you have fun?
Yes. I hang out with Brian Reynolds. But also I love live music. I love music festivals. So this year has been really challenging, the year of the pandemic. But now Texas has been opening up again. So hopefully I'll be able to go to some shows. And I love electronic music. So I like dancing. I started my athletic career as a dancer. Doesn't mean that I'm good at it, but I still got some moves. I can follow a beat. So I go out, and try to go to music festivals or just hang out with friends. That's how I blow up some steam.
Okay, so last fun one before we call it a night. Someone wants to know, if you could bring back dinosaurs, would you?
No. I wouldn't, because no, because they were put in probably like a Jurassic Park theme park or something, and then put them in cages, and if they didn't, they would let loose, and people were going to try to fly to the island, and they would let loose, and they would genetically reproduce and meet people, and I watch all the movies. I know what would happen. No.
Nobody wants that. Nobody.
No.
Although I am curious now, what do you have a favorite dinosaur?
Sure. I mean, I like the T-Rexes. I like the little tiny short arms. I like they can't hold a cell phone, It's like you're always speaking.
That's hilarious. And that's exactly the note that we want to end on, with our absolutely incredible Dr. Addy Tolliver. So with that, our job shadow with Dr. Addy has now come to a close. First, let's thank Addy. Addy, through your incredible experiences and stories, thank you so much for talking with us tonight about your career as a part of Trey Season 3. And a few quick notes for our audience. First of all, we're going to launch a quick poll right now, so please complete this poll before you leave. Second, also, if I can pull my screen back up here, don't forget that you can register and attend as many of our job shadows as you would like. We're going to do 4 in total. So this is the first. The upcoming topics include science and technology this Thursday, May 13th, journalism and communications next Tuesday, May 18th, and business and finance and marketing next Thursday, May 20th. All the registration links can be found in your Season 3 program calendar. And then last but not least, for coaches, for any of your athletes who are not able to attend live, we will be posting our recording of this conversation, as well as all of our conversations, on our YouTube channel. And coaches, we would please encourage you to encourage your athletes to attend at least one job shadow live. And for everyone watching at home, please post on social media about this job shadow and tag @TreyAthletes. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. And a very special thank you to my good friend, Dr. Addy Tolliver, for her invaluable time. On behalf of every single one of our Trey athletes, coaches, and families, thank you, thank you, thank you, Addy. You are truly an inspiration.
My pleasure.
Until next time, to athletes everywhere, we hope everyone has a great night and stay safe out there. Thank you.